Hello, everyone. My name's Atlin. I'm the CEO of Communicate Inclusively. Thank you for joining us today for our fireside chat, which is all about intergenerational inclusion. It's Intergenerational Awareness Week, and so we thought we would jump on and do a fireside chat and tackle some of the key things that happen in the workplace that are linked to intergenerational inclusion. And I'm so excited to have my team with me here today to share their thoughts. I will get them to introduce themselves shortly as we kick off things. And so, as I said, today's diverse workforce, we're really looking towards fostering understanding and collaboration across different generations. And although I'm not, fully immersed in understanding and an advocate for the different generations, we are going to be using that today to help us to talk about the different experiences. And so for me, I'm Gen X. I won't reveal my age, but just to say that, I've, had generally positive experiences in the workplace being Generation X. And I guess right now, a lot of the people in leadership teams are within the same generation as me. And so I feel more aligned to them in terms of my experiences and how I'm immersed in the workplace. However, I do sometimes get people thinking I'm younger. And when I mention my 23-year-old daughter, people can sometimes try to look like they're not shocked, but they genuinely are, because they presume that I'm too young to have a daughter who's 23. But I can promise you I'm not, but I'm not revealing my age. Anyway, before we digress, I'd really love to introduce the team. So we're going to kick off with Monica. If you can just briefly introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your generational lens. You don't need to reveal your age either, if you don't want to, that is.
I don't mind, but I won't. I'm Monica, and I'm also belong to the Generation X. So I believe that we are kind of in the middle of everything. So still for me, the movers have a lot of presence when I started to work, and then the millennials came and they changed completely the work experience field, and then also Generation Z. So I'm very happy to work in the middle with a lot of different people, and I really enjoy working with younger people better than with elders, because I feel that I learn more, but you can learn a lot with a lot of different people working around. But this is more or less my experience or my views about that.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Monica. And thank you for joining us. Yeah, I do think it's great to have an environment where you have people of different ages, because there are benefits from all different ages. It's great to have them in the workplace. I guess in some workplaces, the balance isn't always there. And so sometimes you'll find that there'll be more of one generation than the other. Let's move on to Teray. Thank you for joining us. Do you want to give a bit of an introduction to yourself and your generational lens?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Teray. I'm in Generation Z or Z, so the younger generation. So we're used to working with a lot of the elders and kind of following on their path. In terms of development, we're still kind of exploring. We're still kind of finding our feet, especially coming out of lockdown and things like that. So it's interesting and excited to see where things take off.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Teray. Yeah, it's great to have that perspective. And I do think it's really good to stay open-minded, because I think, as you move through the generations, you can sometimes forget what it was like. And so I do think, I find it really valuable kind of having younger people on the team, because it does kind of give you a very different perspective as well. So thank you for that. And then lastly, but certainly not least, over to Savannah. Please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your generational lens.
Hi, I'm Savannah. Like Teray, I'm also in Generation Z or Z. I think in terms of my experiences, overall, they've been positive. I think, like Teray was saying, it's kind of, we're in that process of kind of finding our feet. It's sort of like a trial period. And I think it's been kind of nice, again, being that digital native, all kind of during lockdown, it was everyone sort of shifted to, what we kind of were brought up with. So I think being able to bring sort of like those innovative ideas and being able to sort of help some of the older generations kind of navigate that landscape has been really good. But yeah, it's been positive.
Brilliant. Thank you, Savannah. And I think that's such a great point in terms of, the generation who have been brought up with technologies versus generations who are learning about the technologies as they come and are introduced. I feel, for some generations, it's very natural. It's very intuitive for them in terms of kind of, I guess, engaging and using the technology to its fullest. And so, again, I think it's great to kind of have those people on teams who can really embrace the new technologies and run with it, as it were, because I think that the saying is that some of them were actually born with an iPhone in their hands. And so, of course, they can understand how to use them, unlike some of us in Gen Z who didn't get a mobile phone until we were much older. Again, I'm not going to give away my age by talking about that too much. Okay, so it's great to kind of really understand, the team and our different generational lenses. And now I just want to touch a bit on some of the challenges. We spoke about some of the great benefits, but what are some of the challenges that people face in the workplace, and how can we navigate that? So one of the things that I've heard about in terms of challenges that can occur is around communication styles amongst the different generations, and how their communication preferences and how they like to use comms in the workplace. And so I don't know, Trey, if you'd like to speak a bit about this one in terms of any challenges you've faced with regards to communication styles in terms of different generations in the workplace.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I'm so used to working with members of older generations. So it's kind of incorporating new styles into their working environments. So they might use emails and things like that, which are good, but it can get a bit jumbled and, backlogged and things like that. So using things like Slack, WhatsApp, iMessage, things like that, it's become a lot more relevant, I guess, and a lot more easier to use and incorporate into work, which we might not have been used to, 5 years earlier and things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I mean, for me, I really love embracing the new technologies. For me, I'm part of quite a lot of WhatsApp groups. I mean, I think that's quite innovative. My daughter thinks that WhatsApp is people. So I guess I'm not sure where we sit with that, but I do find that network system's gone down a bit there. I'll just say that a bit again. I tend to use WhatsApp more in my business interactions. I'm part of quite a few WhatsApp groups, which I found really helpful to network and to, I guess, meet people that I may never get to come across. And so I certainly feel that, there are new kind of community-based communication tools, which are great. So I think that's definitely a benefit. But can I ask you, Teray, just in terms of a challenge, is there a challenge in terms of, using those new communication styles with different people from different generations, do you find? Or do you think that everyone is embracing them and happy to use DMs and WhatsApps and Slack, etc., in their work?
Well, I think it's a bit of a mix because during the last 2 years, I think there's been a really big uptake with things like Zoom, Google Teams. So I think everyone's starting to get used to, webcamming and using their mics and things like that. So I think as we go on, it might get a bit easier, but we're still kind of in the middle process of people needing training, maybe the younger people being more hands-on with technology and things like that. But I think it's on the right path, and hopefully it gets better. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess one of the other challenges I wanted to talk a bit about was with regards to hybrid working. And so I mentioned that because you mentioned Teams and there's kind of, online meetings and communication tools. And people who are entering the workplace now, some of them are being asked to either do hybrid working or to be in the office. And I guess for Gen X, we've been used to being in the office, but some of the younger generations haven't had that experience. For them, their career started working online and working remotely. So I don't know if anyone wants to share any thoughts on that in terms of the adjustment back to being in the office and how that may impact different generations more than others. Does anyone want to share their thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I will. I think being used to sort of like working from home has been like really nice coming into it. And I think for the younger generations, there's almost this expectation now to go along with at least hybrid working or remote working. I think we've come into the workforce really valuing having this work-life balance. I think looking at older generations and sort of their mentality of, you know, having to grind super hard, you know, all their life, I think we've come at it from a slightly different approach coming into it like this. So I think, yeah, having sort of the opportunity and the flexibility to be able to do hybrid or work from home options is kind of what we're after. So it is like a big adjustment when sort of you're being asked to come into the office and it's, you know, it's office attire and it's, you know, we've been so used to being able to be relaxed and comfortable when we work. So it is definitely a big adjustment, but I think a lot more companies are adopting sort of like hybrid working for us. I think they're kind of starting to realize that this is what, you know, we want coming into the workforce.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I can see that it could impact different generations in all kinds of ways in terms of this working style, and hybrid working certainly seems to be a more inclusive approach in terms of flexibility. But I do think there are more and more organizations that are going back to more office space. And sometimes I think it could be down to the Gen Z or the older generations kind of wanting to revert back to what it was before COVID, which I think, like you said, could be a struggle for some who have never had to manage of commuting 5 days a week or having to wear office attire every day rather than more comfortable clothing, which you can get away with when you're working remotely. So I certainly think that's one to watch and to see how that develops from an inclusivity angle, but also from an intergenerational inclusion angle as well. Okay, so let's touch on a bit of a different topic. What about unconscious bias? So even in this conversation today, we've touched on biases in terms of our opinions of different generations. But Monica, it'd be great to kind of hear from you in terms of any experiences you've had with regards to unconscious bias and how it's impacted you in the workplace.
Okay, so as I said, I belong to the Generation X, so that means that you finish your degree with 22, 23 years old and you immediately start to work. And obviously in that moment, as you were the youngest, you weren't heard, you weren't even looked at, and your opinions wasn't very considerate. We just they want us like a kind of training us to mold us inside of the shape of the company. Mm-hmm. So this was what they call it an internship, not really great possibilities or whatever. So you hadn't got really a voice. This is the main change I found. So when you start to be in your middle career, like let's say going to your 30s, for me was a great handicap, the fact that as a woman, I've been asked if I was going to have babies or if I was going to get married, because everyone assumed that my priority was going to be my family instead my career. So in that moment, there weren't too many positions, management position for women. First, because we weren't considered, because of that, I said. And then because also women didn't want to apply, because have a conciliation between their life, their family lives, and the work was almost impossible. They didn't exist at all. So there were women that they were working all day and then they go home like high executives at late hours in the night. So no one wanted to do that. Mm-hmm. So it was a kind of big issue in that moment. And now that I'm in this generation and another position, I'm not, it's me, the person who hires another people. Sometimes I need to think about my bias with other generation. And for me, it's quite surprising the curriculums I read every day. The Guardian generation said that sometimes I think, how did you do all those courses, all those trainings, all those degrees if you are just 23 years old? It's like, the maths doesn't help me because it's like, it's not possible in this world. And they have so much knowledge, but they don't got experience. So sometimes it's like, but we need to give them the opportunity to have this experience. So I'm fighting with my colleagues because of that, because I really would like to have people like Tare, like Savannah working by my side. and give them the opportunity to have a job and then develop all the knowledge that they have. But I think that it's quite difficult for them, get a position or be considered because they don't have the issue of the experience. But as a woman, I think that is better now, because at least they are not asked about that.
Yeah.
That was quite, yeah.
Yeah, some great points there, Monica. I certainly think that there is more awareness around unconscious bias and, I guess, blatant discrimination with regards to gender, and interviews being asked about, your family is certainly not acceptable in this day and age. I'm sure it still happens every now and again, but I'd like to think that the main considerations when you go for a job interview are your skills, your knowledge, and how you're going to bring value to the organization. So I'd certainly think things have moved on from there. But I think the other thing you touched on, it'd be great to kind of get Savannah's thoughts on this, because I do think that in terms of being able to get entry-level jobs, there is certainly some bias that still occurs in the interview process, but also within the job search and the language used in job descriptions and job ads. Savannah, do you want to talk a bit about your experience with that?
Yeah, so I think kind of like Monica was kind of saying, like you sort of finish university and, you go onto all of these job descriptions, and a lot of them are saying, oh, we require you to have sort of like 2 or 3 years experience in, a role or a similar role. And I think sort of when you're sort of fresh out of university, or, you're kind of looking for a change of career, or you're just trying to start your career, it's difficult because you feel like no one's really able to give you a chance. I'm sort of sat there a lot of the time thinking, well, if you just hired me, then eventually I'll have that amount of experience, but I just don't. So I think kind of going into the workforce as young people, we do have this kind of pressure to be able to prove ourselves on our skills and our knowledge base, because it just doesn't ever feel like we have enough. They're expecting people, at that point who are in sort of like their 30s, moving on to their 40s, and it's like, well, that's not quite me.
Yeah. I think there is certainly a lot of expectation in terms of roles, and that employers want a lot from the people that are applying. But then I guess it's whether the benefits they're offering are really aligned to what they're expecting. I do think the job market is kind of going through a transition right now. There seems to be increasing turnover rates, and I think this could be due to people, wanting more from employers. It's not just about the job itself; it's about the culture and how people are treated, and lots of other factors, which is really what Communicate Inclusively is all about in terms of creating that inclusive culture. But I certainly think it's really important for organizations to give the younger generations more opportunity. But even for those who maybe haven't got experience directly in that role, there are transferable skills, and there are other things that people can bring to the role. I also think this can kind of play into social mobility as well, in terms of people from certain backgrounds may find it difficult to break into certain roles in certain sectors as well. And so certainly would like to see more inclusivity within the recruitment processes and in those job ads in terms of inclusive language, that more people can apply. Because potentially, I guess, Savannah, you could maybe have an opportunity to get the role, but quite often I think people just don't apply. They almost cancel themselves out, and we've heard this before about imposter syndrome, and especially women, we've found there are statistics around we need to feel like we can fulfill like 99.9% of all the criteria within job ads, whereas men may be looking to maybe fulfill maybe 75% before they apply. And so I think bet on yourself. If you see an opportunity that you think you can do well and suits what you're looking for in career wise, I certainly would say to go for it. And then in the same hand, I'd urge organizations to be more open-minded about the people they're selecting to come for interview, because you could certainly get a surprise from a younger person who maybe will bring something very different that you hadn't anticipated. And so thank you for sharing all of your experiences. I guess just to kind of wrap things up, we'd really love to talk a bit about kind of solutions and recommendations, kind of how can we deal with some of these issues that I think are very relatable in every workplace in the world and in the UK. And I guess the first thing would be in terms of kind of mentorship. We talk about it quite a lot, But there's such a thing as reverse mentorship. And this is really where kind of the leaders and the managers in the business can learn a lot from other people, other colleagues in the business can help them. And so this is really around helping to foster greater understanding around intergenerational skills, but also knowledge transfer between the two parties. So I certainly recommend that. Then the other focus should be around psychological safety. And this is really where, you can give people an opportunity to feel that they can share their views openly. Again, you can find with bias that sometimes in meetings, certain people of certain generations will get more airtime and opportunities to speak. Their values may be taken on board more so, but if someone else of a different generation were to say the same thing, maybe it wouldn't be taken on board. And so I do think this psychological safety where everyone's opinions are valued and people are encouraged to give feedback is really important to help to remove any intergenerational bias that may occur. And then lastly, I think just in terms of intergenerational collaboration and really encouraging that in the workplace. And so that would look like teams really thinking about the structure and the makeup of who are in the teams and the projects, and looking to have different people from different generations so they can bring different experiences, different perspectives. And, I think within the Communicate Inclusively team, we've really benefited from having, diverse perspectives, and hopefully, I think, giving people space to kind of share their thoughts and really influence our agenda and what we do and our strategies and our approaches and how we communicate. And I really think there is so much value in having different generations within teams and working together on projects. And so just to say, thank you to, everyone on this panel who has, played a real key role in shaping Communicate Inclusively, and I'm hoping we'll continue to do so. And just to say that we're open to working with many different people of all ages. Everyone's got something to bring to the table. And lastly, just to say, if you're in an organization and you want help or support with your inclusivity and creating a culture where everyone of all generations feels able to fulfill their potential and thrive, we're here to support you in terms of building out strategies, building out interventions and initiatives, or also just doing an audit in terms of your diversity and helping you with your data to understand who is in your business and also the sentiment, how they're feeling with regards to belonging, etc. So do have a look at our website. We've got lots of resources and articles on there, or you can also drop us an email. We'd love to hear from you.